In this session, I will be explaining about the development of the pancreas. So first of all, the gut tube. So our gastrointestinal system, it is derived from the gut tube, whereas this gut tube, it is a derivative of endoderm. So the gut tube can be divided into foregut, midgut, and hindgut. So, when you are taking a sagittal section of your body and from the side you are looking, you can see this is the anterior abdominal wall and this is the umbilicus region. So, this is the part of foregut and this is the midgut. So, you can see this gut tube is forming a loop and that loop is towards the umbilicus. That means towards the anterior region. This is the posterior region. So our pancreas is developing from, you can see a C-shaped loop here. So from the C-shaped loop, a bud will arise. This is towards the ventral side. So we will call this as ventral pancreatic bud. Ventral pancreatic bud. And a bud will arise. This is facing dorsally. So this is the dorsal pancreatic bud. So here you can see that this C-shaped loop will form the duodenum. So the duodenum is derived from both the foregut and the midgut. So you can see that here there is the ventral pancreatic bud. It is developing ventrally from the junction of the foregut and the midgut tube. In the same way, this is the primitive bile duct. This is a primitive bile duct which is also deriving from the junction of foregut and midgut. So here you can see this loop, it is facing anteriorly. Now it goes for a 90-degree rotation towards the right. So when it rotates 90-degree towards right, the ventral pancreatic bud, you can see it will be facing towards the right, whereas the dorsal pancreatic bud will be facing towards the left. I think you have got the orientation. That is thing like this. This is facing anteriorly. C-shaped loop is facing anteriorly. It rotates 90-degree to the right. So the bud which is facing anteriorly, that is a ventral pancreatic bud, it now comes on the right side. At the same time, the bud which is present dorsally, it comes on the left side. So actually the ventral pancreatic bud, it is developing as a bilobed mass. Then after some time it fuses and it forms the a fused mass. So this entire process happens in the 4th week. Now to form the entire pancreas, the ventral pancreatic bud, now which is situating on the right side, it must travel and reach here. That is the dorsal, lower part of the dorsal pancreatic bud. So it has to travel a 180-degree rotation, that is through along the posterior aspect of the duodenum. So imagine like this. So on your right hand side you have the ventral pancreatic bud and on the left hand side you have the dorsal pancreatic bud. So this ventral pancreatic bud has to reach on the dorsal pancreatic bud. So it must go 180 degree along the posterior aspect. The same is happening here. It must go like this, 180 degree. That means the ventral pancreatic bud has to travel initial 90 degree plus 180 degree rotation to reach the dorsal pancreatic bud. So this is the head of the pancreas and this is the uncinate process. So you can see that entire pancreas except the lower part of the head of the pancreas and the uncinate process, that is this portion, lower part of the head of the pancreas and uncinate process. So the rest entire pancreas derived from dorsal pancreatic bud, and this portion, that is the lower part of the head of the pancreas and the uncinate process, derived from ventral pancreatic bud. So here the dorsal pancreatic bud will develop eventually. So the ventral pancreatic bud, it fuses posterior inferiorly of the dorsal pancreatic bud. Now each will be having their own duct. Now looking onto the development of the duct, an oblique communication will appear between the dorsal pancreatic duct and the ventral pancreatic duct. So in pancreas, actually we have a main pancreatic duct, which is also called as the duct of Wierson, and an accessory pancreatic duct, this one, that is called the duct of Santorini. Duct of Santorini. So actually this is the second part of the duodenum. Second part of the duodenum. So this main pancreatic duct, it is opening here. That is exactly at the junction of foregut and midgut. And that is called the major duodenal papillae. You can see this at the second part of the duodenum. And the minor pancreatic duct, this one, it is also opening to the second part of the duodenum through minor duodenal papillae. So this major pancreatic duct, from where it is derived? It is actually derived from this portion, that is the distal part of the dorsal pancreatic duct, and this oblique communication between the duct of ventral and dorsal pancreatic bud, and from the proximal part of the ventral pancreatic duct, and a small portion from the primitive bile duct that I have mentioned above. From this, the major pancreatic duct appears. And it opens through the major duodenal papillae. So this proximal part of the dorsal pancreatic duct, sometimes it may persist and becomes the accessory pancreatic duct, otherwise it regresses. So when it persists, it opens through the minor duodenal papillae. So you can see when the major pancreatic duct is formed, it will give small ductules and it will be lined by acini. This will be lined by acini. So some of the cells of the acinar cells, they will leave this alveoli and they will form a group, and this group and this separated cells, it will forms a group, and this forms the islets of Langerhans. This forms the islets of Langerhans, and this is usually occurring at the third month of intrauterine life. An applied to be discussed is the annular pancreas. So earlier I have said that this is the ventral pancreatic bud. So it will be a like bilobed structure, and later on this will fuse. This will fuse like this. But when it persists, so if it persists, what happens is that one bud will go in this direction and the other one will go through the posterior aspect to reach the dorsal pancreatic bud. It is actually like the second part of the duodenum is encircled. So this will be actually encircling like this, and it actually compress the duodenum, as you can see right here. So the complication of the annular pancreas is the compression of the duodenum. Sometimes the accessory pancreatic tissue seen may be in the walls of the duodenum, or it may be seen near the gallbladder, or sometimes it can be incorporated in the Meckel's diverticulum. So the annular pancreas and the accessory pancreatic tissue, these are the two most seen common anomaly of the in the development of pancreas. Few one-liners are actually the islets of Langerhans are found in the third month of intrauterine life, but the insulin secretion happens at the fifth month. So in pancreas we have other cells such as alpha cells which secrete glucagon, delta cell which secrete somatostatin. They are also derived from the parenchymal cells. Then the pancreatic connective tissue, it is formed from the visceral mesoderm which is surrounding the pancreatic bud. In some cases, these two duct, that is the dorsal pancreatic duct and the ventral pancreatic duct, they fails to fuse. In that case, when it fails to fuse, the ventral bud will be drained by the ventral duct, and the dorsal duct will be drained by the dorsal bud will be drained by the dorsal duct. So this is an X-ray which is showing the annular pancreas. So on X-ray finding you can see this is the stomach and this is the duodenum. There is loss of continuity of the duodenum. It is because the pancreas is surrounding here, and this sign is called as double bubble sign. So the X-ray finding of annular pancreas will show double bubble sign. So with this I am concluding my topic. So we have a ventral by concising the important points we have discussed, we have a ventral pancreatic bud as well as a dorsal pancreatic bud. The dorsal pancreatic bud forms the major part of the pancreas except the lower part of the head and uncinate process, which are formed by the ventral pancreatic bud. So thank you.